the transition from employee to self-employed is difficult enough. But then to your point, you go from 40 hours to 60 hours to 80 hours to 100 hours, and then you burn out.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of learn how to delegate to get to that B or the business. And if you don't figure that out, then you cap yourself out. And you see a lot of people. I see like realtors here, CPAs, I see doctors, dentists. You see these, they're burning themselves out in their professions, right? Instead of figuring out how to leverage their time, right? And it's a really, really hard thing for people to give up that control.
Totally. I mean, again, I think that's what you're so good at is you started doing all the hard work yourself, right? And then you found out how to delegate some of that hard work and then manage towards outcomes. And the faster you can get to that point where you can start to define what winning looks like and then put someone in a position where they see how they can then go win, that's how you start to scale forward. I mean,
you know what the epiphany was for me? I think when you're doing whatever you're doing, you have this weird belief that you're the best at it.
Yeah.
Right? There's no one else on the planet
Can't be.
that could be better than you, right? And once I started like realizing that everyone's better than me,
Yeah.
right? Like seriously, every single time I delegated anything, I was always like, oh, I should have done that earlier because they're focused on it and they're crushing it. Like you just got meet a lot of my team today.
Yeah.
There's no way I can pull off, what some of those folks are doing.
I think that's the quality of a leader, right? And if we can break this down to leading a company, but we can also break it down to leading your finances. You as a leader, you've got to know what winning looks like. And if you can define what a win looks like, then you can be the one to try to do all the pieces to get that win. But that's the 40, 50-year game. That's the idea of go to school, get a job, put your money in the market, and just kind of hope that it works out. But if you want to take a little bit more control, if you still know what winning looks like, you can then start to delegate, responsibility, expertise within that, hold people accountable to what the win looks like. And then, you realize the best thing about a leader is assembling good people to do good work within a defined system. And if you can do that, you can accelerate your pathways so much faster. I mean, you manage thousands of doors. You've done so many projects. You've got a massive team. And it comes down to leading a team towards an outcome, working smarter, not harder.
Yeah. I think there's a misconception in the beginning, at least, that, well, you work hard like you kind of started out. And I think a lot of us can relate to that piece. But then to replace yourself is really, really, really hard because you're like, okay, are they going to have the same values, same character, the same drive? And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. That's kind of the frustration part. And so sometimes you go out on that limb and then you pull back.
Yeah.
Like only I can do it this good, right? And in a lot of cases, that's true. But in some cases, it's a hiring problem.
It is. I think it really comes down to also it's not only hiring, then your role changes from not only in the beginning, you're doing the work, but now you have to manage the work getting done.
Yeah.
And if you can manage the work getting done and coach someone up to a clear standard, a clear expectation, and oftentimes if you can attach a win to that, like your person that you're managing gets a bonus or they get a gift card or something like that if they hit a certain level of occupancy or turnover or whatever it might be, then you help everyone win and the common win gets bigger. That's the best part about aligning your team members with a bigger focused win and then you managing to those expectations. If you can do that, you can start to build a portfolio at that point, putting the right people in the right seats.
Yeah. I remember one of the earliest books I read was, how to work on your business, not in your business. And I'm going back. I don't know why I just thought of that, but I remember that was an epiphany to me because I was like, this is me. I'm the one spinning all the plates here. Right. And if one breaks, which they always break, right. Now you're focused on that.
Totally.
And to be able to step out of that, it's scary, it's real, but it's absolutely worth it.
It is. I mean, my first book that I read was E-Myth, right? And he talked about the 3 different hats that you can wear within a business. And most people get stuck in operator, right? They're just trying to do all the operations. And that's limiting. That you can only take you so far doing that.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about motivation and you suggest that motivation isn't always the answer. So what's your issue with focusing on motivation?
Oh, I love that. I do love motivation. I'm huge on motivation. I'm huge on having a why behind it. But I think that's where so many goal seminars stop is they stop with the why. They stop with the big picture. They stop with the fluffy idea. And you need to have that. But that kind of goes back to one of the questions we were just talking about in the beginning. If you can't attach a why to a clear set of facts, you don't have 2 points, right? But if we have a dot here and a dot here, we can draw a straight line between those 2 dots. If you just have one dot, my why, right, the big picture, there's many different pathways I can take to that. So for me, it's having a major definite aim. It's having a clear vision of what I want. And that's why for me, I like to talk about the idea of retiring in 10 years or less. That doesn't mean you have to stop. It just means you're giving yourself a definitive goal with a measurable outcome in a defined period of time. That's the why. And if I can get really clear on why I want it, how my life is going to look, feel, and be different at that point, then I've got to come back to the present moment and I've got to do the one thing that most people, they just don't want to do. You have to do the work, right? You have to build the process. You have to do the system.
That's where the discipline comes in, right?
Discipline comes in. Yeah. And so that's where, I mean, it's easy to dream. I mean, we're coming around New Year's, right? How many New Year's resolutions have we all set where it's, you're going to, this year's going to be different, but then 2 weeks in, we're back to the same old routines and habits, right? We've got to bring the why back to the present moment and build a system that will allow you to slowly become that person capable of retiring in 10 years.
So I know a lot of people set goals, right? I think everyone has goals. Some are written, some aren't written, some are verbal, some aren't verbal, but whatever. I think most people want to generally move their life forward somehow. And then there's a guilt later if they don't, right? So it actually can spiral a little bit negative.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you've been able to see people, if they set goals, on achieve them? Like, because I find some people are, like Danille is extremely disciplined, like incredible, right? She's very goal oriented, very disciplined. But I find that discipline is one of those big things for sure. But that doesn't necessarily cover her why, right? The discipline is one piece, but the why is something deeper, right? More. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, the why, it has to be something deeper, right? And for me, you know, I'll never forget, for me, when I was about 4 or 5 years out of college, I'd lost a bunch of money in the stock market. I started going into real estate, and I was making all of these trade-offs with my life. I just thought if I work harder, save more money, one day it's all going to work out, right? And after I lost a bunch of money in the stock market, I then started buying real estate, but it didn't ever really feel like it was a pathway that I was committed to. I was willing to jump at anything, right? If Bitcoin would have been out back in the day, I would have jumped all into Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's the latest, hottest, greatest thing. But it wasn't until my son got sick. My son had emergency open heart surgery 4 years after being born.